what is more dangerous to your organization than employees who are resistant to change? Change fatigue. Change fatigue is that passive resignation about changes within your organization. Because the people that you identify as resistant to change are usually the people who are working to keep things as they are. They're trying to maintain the current state. But employees who have change fatigue don't. They have neither the energy to protect the current state nor the interest or energy to move through a change process. In this video, I want to share with you 3 early and critical warning signs that you need to know to prevent change fatigue from derailing your change initiatives and burning out your employees. Welcome back to the channel. Over the past few years, I've noticed a shift during the summer season. Instead of slowing down, reflecting, re-energizing, organizations are using the summer period to ramp up new projects. The result is that the rate and speed of change are increasing even more, and that increases the risk of change fatigue. When we think about the risk of change fatigue, it's not just the amount of change that matters. It's also the way you approach and organize your change efforts that can lead to change fatigue. For example, many organizations that I begin to work with are approaching change as a collection of individual or often independent projects instead of a series of interrelated transitions that people must navigate. One leader I worked with was so exhausted and described the extraordinary efforts that her and her team were making trying to keep up with the many change initiatives the organization was launching. They were exhausted, and it was beginning to feel to her and to her team like the organization was undertaking change for the sake of change. Change fatigue left unchecked leads to employee burnout and an inability for your organization to initiate and sustain the changes it needs to make. Therefore, you need to be alert to the early warning signs of change fatigue. So let's talk about 3 early warning signs that may indicate that your employees or your team is beginning to suffer from change fatigue. Before I talk about 3 specific warning signs, it's helpful to remember that change fatigue is driven by exhaustion. That feeling of being completely drained. I describe it as your battery is drained. You're overextended beyond your capacity and your capability. Okay, so with that as the foundation, exhaustion is the foundation. Let's talk about 3 early warning signs that can signal your employees may be suffering from change fatigue. The first, apathy. Apathy towards the change you may be launching, but also an apathy towards their daily work. There's a sense that you can't make a difference, so why even try? One manager, when we were talking about change fatigue, described how he was noticing his employees just didn't seem to be performing their job in the same way. And when I asked about it, he described employees who were doing their job. They were doing what they were asked to do. Well, that's all. They just didn't seem to put the same care and attention into their work. With apathy, you begin to lose the productivity, the innovation, and the creativity that you need from your employees. Early warning sign number 2, disengagement. Disengagement from the change initiatives that you're launching, or maybe it's a disengagement for their role and even from the organization. Disengagement is when your employees, they come to work, but their commitment, contribution, and the value that they can bring doesn't. An engaged employee comes to work asking, how can I make a difference? How can I contribute? And knowing that they do contribute. A disengaged employee comes to work asking, what's in it for me? What will I get out of it? Is it time to go home yet? Early warning sign number 3, lack of commitment. Many of the leaders I work with talk and ask about getting buy-in for their change initiatives. And buy-in is helpful, but it's important to remember that buy-in is simply the agreement to the idea of change. It's commitment that allows people to engage, connect, and act in the direction of adopting those activities and behaviors that is going to enable you to achieve your outcome. I've done a previous video on the difference between buy-in and commitment, and I'll post it in the show notes below. Change fatigue directly impacts commitment. One study found that change fatigue accounted for over 43% of the variance between those employees who were committed and moving forward and those who were not. Change fatigue is not inevitable. It is possible to enable multiple and simultaneous organizational changes without creating change fatigue. Here are 3 actions that can help get you started in minimizing the risk of change fatigue. First, recognize that no change in your organization, regardless of its size, is an isolated event. Every change you want to make is interconnected, both to other changes that are going on in your organization and your daily operation. Look at change holistically in the context of your operation. Second, focus on helping people navigate the journey, the change process, and not just the implementation of a project or an event. Third, actively involve people in the process and the decision-making to enable that adoption. I've done a previous video on the critical need for active involvement, and I'll post it in the show notes. One last thing. Change fatigue is not resistance. It's easy to mistake some of these early warning signs of change fatigue as resistance to change, but that would be a mistake. Change fatigue is not resistance, and treating it as such will only make the situation worse instead of better. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you'd like some help with preventing change fatigue or managing multiple simultaneous changes without creating change fatigue, reach out. Let's have a conversation. Bye for now.